For the vast majority of species, culture can shape their values or beliefs without entirely limiting them. It can be a reflection just as easily as it can be a complete contradiction of their actions. But to be a Mandalorian is to embody an idea, to possess an unmistakable identity of honor, courage, and loyalty so strong, it defines their very being. No barriers of race or ethnicity exist in Mandalorian culture, and no accident of birth or heritage can hold an individual back from achieving greatness. Thus, to outsiders, the Mandalorian ideology possesses a unique sense of mystery that comes from the strange combination of intense conviction and inconsistency. Destroyers of entire civilizations and affectionate parents, savage warriors who would rather adopt children orphaned by war than kill them. To everyone but themselves, they are walking contradictions. Ultimately, discipline holds their culture together. But while the code of Mandalore's proud people has remained unchanged for millennia, many individuals of great influence and power have risen to alter the course of its history. These beings were known as the Mandalores. Driven from their homeworld of Coruscant, the ancient Tong were forced to flee to the Outer Rim, where they settled on the planet Rune. There they remained for millennia, until the legendary warrior Mandalore I led the Tong to conquer a new world which they named in honor of their leader. The Tong subsequently recast themselves as Mandalorians, sons and daughters of Mandalore. But the Tong were warriors from youth, and the single planet proved unable to sate their inexhaustible fervor for battle. The Navuta were the first victims of the Mandalorians' frenzied onslaught, and although the insectoid species were considered one of the deadliest in the known galaxy, in just under 3 years, they were hunted to extinction. The Fenalar, Quarrens, Telonians, and Basiliskins met similar fates as they warred against the warrior clans of Mandalore. And only against the inhabitants of Mandalia, a neighboring planet, did the Mandalorians truly meet their match. Unlike the species that had come before, the Mandalian giants successfully repelled the attacks of the Tong, and eventually forced them into a standstill. Wholly impressed, the Mandalorians granted them the opportunity to fight beside the warrior clans as fellow brothers, changing the meaning of what it meant to be a Mandalorian forever. From that point of history onwards, a Mandalorian was no longer a glorified denomination of the ancient Tong. It was a symbol of solidarity, a single shared culture uniting many different beings. Mandalore I's burning reign of conquest ended with his death, and he was succeeded by Mandalore the Indomitable, a young Tong who had previously served with his predecessor as one of the famed Mandalorian Crusaders. By the time of the Great Sith Wars, Mandalore the Indomitable was leading his warriors on a search for a worthy foe. His opportunity came when the fleet arrived on the Teta system, home to Ulic Qel-Droma's Order of Sith. The Mandalorians' efforts to capture the Sith capital world climaxed on the plains of Harkul, where he battled Qel-Droma in single combat, one fight to decide the fate of both armies. Mandalore the Indomitable was defeated, and accepting defeat, he ceded his warriors to Qel-Droma before asking to be killed. However, Qel-Droma did not wish to kill his foe, offering the Mandalore an opportunity to ally his clans with the Sith. With the Mandalorians at their side, the Sith armies broke through the Outer Rim, and eventually launched an invasion on the Republic capital itself. Caught by surprise, Coruscant was virtually undefended. Yet a sizable contingent of Jedi, led by Exar Kun's former master, organized a stiff defense of the city world. Even still, Mandalore and his crusaders managed to push them back, and were on the brink of victory, when Alima Keto, another of the Sith Triumvirate, ordered a full-scale retreat. Angered and confused, Mandalore retaliated against the orders and demanded to speak with Keldroma. His confusion deepened when he was told that Keldroma had been killed during battle. Yet, realizing that with Keldroma dead, his new master was Alima Keto, Mandalore withdrew his troops and departed from Coruscant. It was only later that Mandalore the Indomitable learned of Alima Keto's treachery. Keldroma was alive and still fighting when Keto had ordered his retreat. Commanding his troops to follow Keto in his absence, Mandalore traveled to Yavin 4 to seek the aid of Exar Kun. With Kun's help, Mandalore was successful in rescuing Keldroma, and the trio retreated to Yavin 4, where the warrior commander received his new orders. Tasked with capturing and holding the royal palace of Onderon, Mandalore dispatched the entirety of his basilisk fleet onto the planet. However, the strength of the Onderonian beast riders, combined with that of the Republic, proved too much for the warrior clans as the Mandalorian fleet was slowly picked to pieces. During their retreat, Mandalore's personal basilisk droid was hit by enemy fire, and he crash-landed on the surface of Daxon. Mandalore the Indomitable died, victim to 100 bite and claw wounds. With Mandalore the Indomitable's body lost, so too was the hereditary mask of the Mandaeem. For years it laid unfound among the beasts and flora of the Daxon jungle, until a search party, sent by the Mandalorians to find their former leader's body, stumbled upon its prize. And so the next Mandalore was born. History remembers him as Mandalore the Ultimate. In the wake of the clan's defeat, Mandalore set about their reforging. Few remained from the Battle of Onderon, and so the Mandalore set to increase the recruiting of other species into the Mandalorian fold. Under his leadership, humans, Rhodians, Twi'leks, Togorians, even their old Mandalorian allies came to swell the ranks of the warrior clans. For the first time in history, the Tong lost their numerical majority, and thus the term Mandalorian evolved to signify the disciplined culture of honor, glory, and brotherhood as seen in the modern galaxy. "10 years into Mandalore's reign, a pureblood member of the Sith species approached the warrior clans with an offer. Posing as an emissary, the Sith spun visions of a war against the Republic, a glorious crusade, a Mandalorian victory. And under the Sith's influence, Mandalore the Ultimate led his renewed forces into the Outer Rim, conquering world after world as they began to dismantle a dysfunctional Republic. Slowly, the Mandalorian forces moved in on the core worlds, but despite the pleas of the Senate, the Jedi refused to get involved. Unwilling to stand by as innocents were killed, 2 Jedi Knights, Revan and Malak, chose to ignore the wisdom of the Council and intervene in the war, bringing with them countless Jedi who were sympathetic with the Republic's needs. With Revan leading the charge, the war began to turn in the Republic's favor. And on Malachor 5, Revan bested Mandalore the Ultimate himself in single combat. In his death throes, Mandalore realized that he had been manipulated by the Sith all along, and told Revan of the great danger the galaxy was in. Mandalore's death and the loss of his mask fractured the Mandalorian clans, and most of the original Tong were killed in the war. Without leadership or direction, many went on to find work as bounty hunters or mercenaries. Ultimately, the former Mandalore's mantle fell to Canderous Ordo, who, as Mandalore the Preserver, reunited the broken identity of the Mandalorians. Under Revan's commands, Canderous rebuilt the clans in preparation of the Sith's eventual invasion. His lifetime would pass, as would those of his successors. And for 400 years they waited. But when the enemy finally arrived, the Sith proved to be the least of their worries.